All right, if you're with me for the GunGuyTV live stream that we're doing right now, hang tight. We're just pushing a couple of buttons here, making sure everything works, or hoping it does. As you probably already know, it's just me. I do not have a producer or any of that stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to get Rick Travis on here in just a second to help us figure out what the heck we're doing in California with the magazine ban and all that stuff. So here we go. Rick is going to be with us to tell us about that. I'm sorry I had to reach up there and move things around a little bit, but that did seem to work. Rick, thank you very much for being on the show. Hopefully I've got audio with you. We've been fiddling with that for about 20 minutes. Can you be heard? I don't know. You know, there's one in every room, dude. There's absolutely one in every room. That just really cracks me up. Well, Rick Travis is from the California Rifle and Pistol Association. You may know he's been on the show many, many times. He's been fighting for the Second Amendment in the state of California since God's dog was a pup. I'm very grateful for him. And as you may or may not know, if you've been living in a cave, very recently Judge Benitez, I think is his name, decided, very accurately, I think, that the California magazine ban is unconstitutional, and he threw it out. And so, Rick, where are we now? Tell me what's going on with that case.
Well, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the case, I think one of the things that's important for all the listeners is to actually go and read the ruling. We have it posted on CRPA.org. But the reason I say that is
all right, Rick, I'm sorry. We've got echo, apparently. I don't know where that came from. We've been fiddling with the audio for a while, guys. I don't know where the echo's coming from. Let me see. Audio. That probably just made the audio go away. Stand by 1 second. Echo. I'll tell you what. This is just me getting old, I think. Well, I don't think there's anything I can do about it. If it's, I guess, let me ask you, if you're watching, can you handle the echo long enough for us to get through this? Somebody said it's good now. Okay, we're good to go. Sorry about that. Maybe it's just you that's echoing, Rick. It's not me. I don't know. Okay. I fixed it, and I didn't know I did it. What was that?
Am I echoing?
Apparently not. I don't know. Why don't you talk a little bit. Let me check this and see if you're echoing. Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that's so important in this ruling at CRPA.org, where you can read it, is it's 84 pages. It's 84 pages that clearly give every 2A supporter all the arguments to have a persuasive conversation with people in the public and those against us. Judge Benitez did an excellent job of copying our opposition with their social appeals and emotional appeals and coming up with ones that are very much in our camp. So no longer do you have to hide because you don't feel you have a good set of arguments. This is probably the most tightly written decision since Heller and McDonald, which are landmark decisions from the Supreme Court of the United States. And this is one that all of us should be reading before we get into the nitty-gritty parts of this, because to not do so is to lose a treasured document now in our fight to restore our rights here in the Golden State.
Well, apparently it's me that's echoing and not you. So I'm going to talk as little as possible. People don't want to hear about me anyway. So
okay.
Can you help us out now? Lots of questions about this. What does this mean for Californians right now? What can they do legally, and what can they not do legally? That would help a ton.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to go through this on two different levels. I'm going to answer those basic questions that we've been getting, because we're averaging well over 1,000 calls a day since Friday on this. But at the same time, I'm also going to try to explain, using this in real time, of what this battle looks like in California, what this really means, where we're at in the whole process. But the one thing is, I never get to say this on your show, so this is absolutely a fantastic day in my life, because normally 365 days a year, I just feel like I'm fighting the losing battle. But not so. Right now, we are winning, and we are winning big. And I need people to understand a couple of the reasons why now we are and we weren't in the past. Thanks to what was set up as this case was being rolled out by Judge Benitez, is that we clearly have an advantage now, or at least parity, within the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And what I mean by that is, with recent appointments from President Trump that have happened over the past week, we now have pretty much an equal number of conservative judges to liberal judges. So the ability for the Attorney General in California or a governor such as Newsom to be able to ask for an en banc, which is an 11-member panel, and have it clearly slanted one side is almost impossible. It's not totally impossible, but within another month or so, it will be, because there are more judges being appointed by the president and approved by our Senate. So if you don't think your vote counts in a national election or for the Senate, it does. And thank God a lot of people elected conservative-leaning senators throughout the country that have provided us with the court we have in the Ninth Circuit, which affects not just California, but several other states in the Western United States, as well as our possessions in the Pacific. So coming back to specifically on March 29th, what this ruling did was it, number one, said it was unconstitutional what happened in Prop 63, as well as in some of the Gunmageddon laws that came up, and said, and the key word is a large capacity magazine is a part of your Second Amendment rights, and you're supposed to have access to it. Now, what's amazing is right after that ruling came out, right after we started announcing, the NRA started announcing who financed this case along with us, here's what happened. We ended up with Brunel's, we ended up with Midway and other large retailers nationwide selling out of all their large capacity magazines in a matter of hours, because everybody flew through the floodgates and started buying it. Then we started getting people calling saying, why is my order pending? Here's the reason for that, and it's pretty clear. Immediately when that started to come out, Becerra, our Attorney General, decided to go ahead and file a stay, which is a temporary stop in what was going on. That stay has been granted, and now what we're doing is we're appealing that. And people are like, oh, so now I can't purchase? Yes, with the stay in effect, you can't purchase. But it does not mean what a lot of people are saying, that you've been banned from possessing that which you already own. Because since June of 2017, the CRPA and the NRA had filed and won successfully another injunction in this Duncan v. Becerra that says, yes, you can possess that which you already own, and it cannot be confiscated. So unless that changes, which is why we always encourage people to come to crpa.org, because we put updates immediately in the legal thing, you can still keep that which you've had.
Rick, before you go on, let me ask you a question, and I'm going to stay away from the split screen because they're telling me that the split screen is where the echo is. Hopefully it's not going on now. We'll try to resolve the echo for you as we go along, and hopefully we won't be echoing to death. Rick, I think I just heard you say something I want to make sure I'm clear on. The Attorney General of California requested a stay. NRA and CRPA et al. Opposed the stay. Has the stay now been approved by the judge? Is this thing now... Okay, so we don't know yet. So as of this moment, what's with the stay or without the stay, as of this moment, right now, what is legal?
So right now, you're safe and legal to anything you purchased over the weekend, you're fine. But right now, we're advising people to be careful, and here's the reason we're saying being careful. Say you go out right now and you order something, and the person out of state decides to sell it to you, and the stay goes and takes effect during that time period. That which is in transit to you is now illegal.
Did I lose you?
No.
Oh,
So I thought you were going to jump in because
no, I wasn't. I just wanted to make sure you paused like that. I thought, well, maybe what.
And so that's why I was trying to be very clear, because some people have possessed the large capacity magazines prior to this ruling. Some people purchased them immediately after this ruling went into effect on this last Friday, and have been doing so since. Those that were already in your possession, meaning you physically have them, are okay. They're not going to be taken away.
Okay, so let me pose some questions to you that I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
He's subject to a lot of different legal interpretations. So we're just trying to tell people to be careful. The secondary part that's very, very clear is a lot of people think, oh, well, this now, means that if I have a AR-15 or an AK-47, I can take out that fixed magazine and I can slam my 30-round, my 50-round, whatever magazine into it, and I'm legal. No, you are not, because that comes under the assault weapons rule. And so that's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about, like, if you had a Ruger 1022 and you had purchased a 25-round magazine, yes, you can put those two things together, go to the range because you possessed them and bought them at a legal time that was okay to do so. Okay,
so now I'm like uber confused. Let me make sure these laws are so convoluted, they're confusing. All right, let me make sure I understand. Yeah, well, it's my world too, babe. I understand. Okay, let me make sure I understand. So if I currently own and possess grandfathered mags in California, they're legal right now. Is that right? Is that right? Okay. No, I'm not there yet. Don't get ahead of me. Okay. The other is, in fact, let me put you back on the screen because you're much prettier than I am. Here you go. Okay.
Not true.
All right, that way. All right. So, secondly, if I buy mags right now at a store in California and I have them in my possession and a stay has not been issued, they are legal as of the moment. Okay. If I order magazines online or somehow and they show up and there is no stay, I'm legal.
Correct.
If I order magazines and it's a delay in getting them here, I order them today, but they don't show up until next Thursday, and sometime between now and next Thursday, the judge issues a stay. Now what? I'm guilty of importing magazines into the state, which is is that a felony, a misdemeanor? I don't know.
It depends on the local authority. It can be anything from an infraction to a misdemeanor to a felony.
Nice. I'm at the mercy of the local authority. Thank you so very much. So that's the reason why ordering them online, unless you can assure they're going to get here quick, probably is not the best choice right now. All right. So now you mentioned if I have magazines, I can't put them in my AK or my AR. But does that apply to featureless rifles as well, or just to registered assault weapons?
Well, it applies across the board because your firearm would be falling under the assault weapons definition that is on that, whether you were going to go featureless or registered assault weapon. It's going to be viewed that way. You're going to end up in trouble with law enforcement. Most of the time, if law enforcement approaches you, they're going to see it as an assault weapon. They're going to confiscate it. They're probably going to arrest you. You may or may not win the point, but regardless if you even win, it's going to cost you quite a sum of money.
So if I'm taking this thing correctly, if I have a mag that holds more than 10 rounds, don't put it in an AR-15 of any kind, featureless or registered assault weapon. Don't put it in an AK of any kind or any like firearm, whether it's an assault weapon or a featureless rifle. So so that brings up, let's get onto some specific ones here. Can I take my long mag that is a normal mag, not a neutered mag, my plus ammo mag, can I put that in my Mini 14, which was built to be California compliant, or am I still risking getting myself arrested?
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to be very careful how I answer this. I personally wouldn't do that.
Okay, well, there you go. So we're kind of down to pistols.
17, yeah, like if you look at a Glock 17 or a Glock 19, a very common firearm that across the country often comes with a 15-round or larger standard magazine, and you had those and they had been everything being legal at the time that you owned them, yeah, you could take those to the range, and by the definition of the law as it stands right now, because nothing has been issued that violates the injunction of 2017, you could have.
Okay, I'm getting a headache. All right, but that's okay. All right, so that's okay. So, we're. Yeah, I bet you did. You probably had it. You probably had it since. There's no bottle of Advil big enough. All right, before I get to people's questions, because I know there are a lot of them, look, we're really talking about it. You can have the mags, but you can't use them in rifles or stuff like that. You made a statement, you used a phrase that was in the decision, and that was, if it's a firearm, a lot of Judge Benitez's decision, as I read it, dealt with firearms that normally come with magazines that have a capacity greater than 10. So if you have a handgun that would normally, outside of California, ship to you or be sold to you with a gun that holds, or a magazine that holds 12, 14, 17 rounds, then that's not an issue, but AR-15s wouldn't fall into that category because of the assault weapons ban, or even something like a Ruger PC carbine, because it doesn't necessarily ship with a long mag everywhere. It ships with a short one. You don't want to be in. That's an area where you got to be careful. Is that what you're telling me?
As you mentioned so effectively, was he discusses the idea of California set an arbitrary limit that 10 rounds is a standard magazine. His point was that's not a standard magazine with different types of firearms, such as a Glock 19 or 17. Their standard is a much larger magazine that ships. That's normal.
Okay, so at this point, it's the frustration level among viewers is probably through the roof. So I just want to make this statement to you. If you're watching and you have the headache that Rick and I now have, This is extraordinarily frustrating because you've now been told your magazines are illegal, but you cannot use them in many, many cases, and that's very frustrating. But I would simply say that these things are going to have to be fought incrementally. So hopefully, if we win this battle, we'll be able to win the next one. Don't give up, and try not to get too stinking frustrated. If you are frustrated, I get it. So are we. But I'm going to take the win. And I'm going to take the W. Just like when I'm playing football or whatever. I'm going to take the W no matter how we got it, and we'll work on the next W after that.
I think there's a couple of things that people have to remember, Joel, as we're going through this process. Number one, before I understood when people said, oh, well, great, this was nothing. We got nothing. But that's not true. Going back to that, if you look at Benitez's ruling, that ruling is written to go and be supported all the way up to the Ninth Circuit to the Supreme Court. Now the game that has changed is the governor and the attorney general have to decide how hard they want to try to defend this illegal act. Because now there's the concern that not only could they lose it for California, but for other states within the Ninth Circuit, this could turn on them just based on their actions of pushing this too far. If they don't have the stay be successfully defended in the state, this is isolated to California. Our advantage is if they do try to shut us down and we make this appeal, which we're already got ready to file, it's everything's set to go, then that makes it for the Ninth Circuit. And if they were foolish enough to push it from there, it goes to the Supreme Court, it becomes law of the land.
Well, now, and you said something key about the Ninth Circuit, and then I'm going to get to some questions here, if you don't mind. But one of those things I think is interesting, I was just reading an article the other day, is that President Trump has now appointed for what do they call it when they approve a judge? I don't know. But anyway, he's now appointed 12 justices to the Ninth Circuit, not all of whom have been seated yet, but many have, and many are in the queue. And however much I might disagree with Mitch McConnell on a whole lot of things, he has done a great job of jamming these justices through that the president is picking. So I'm grateful and thanking God for President Trump in this area and some others. But as I look at the math, my understanding, Rick, is that there are 29 full-time justices on the Ninth Circuit. If he appoints 12, that's a 12-17 split, which is infinitely better, is it not, than what we've been putting up with for about 20 years.
Well, it's actually better. 3 of those judges are not part of the normal split. So it's a 26 judge that we're looking for normally on the en banc. 3 of those judges are normally reserved for reviews and other higher end legal issues. So
you're looking at 12 to 14.
Correct.
Rather than 12 against 17.
And there's 4 others pending. So that could very easily switch over to our side. So that's why I said the slam dunk of a 3-0 liberal decision on a court or an 11-0 decision on the court is almost statistically impossible now.
That's going to be very, very difficult for the state of California. All right, I'm going to put my ugly mug up on the screen here briefly, Rick, so I can look for some questions for you, and you can get a drink, pick your nose, whatever you want to do, and nobody will see it. Let me look at some questions here real quick, and then I'll put you back up there, because there were a number of them, and I just want to scan through here real quick. One, for example, is will this affect states like New Jersey? Apparently, Jersey just started the magazine ban, or Jersey started the magazine ban or similar ban back in 1990. Will it affect other states or just California?
At things nationwide. It's why we often join what's called a friend of the court, or known in the legal world as the amicus brief. The information from Benitez's case is most likely going to be used by the NRA and the New Jersey State Association to turn over the same concept that's being played out in New Jersey, as well as several other states. So this is a huge win, not just for us here in California, potentially in the Ninth Circuit, but like I said, there's 2 pathways. This could be something that's litigated within New Jersey, following the examples of Judge Benitez, but as well as if our state is foolish enough to push this all the way to the Supreme Court, then that ruling, if Duncan v. Bessarion is the case that they take, will become the law of the land, and therefore New Jersey's ban would be kaput, basically.
Okay, so in amongst the other questions, I probably should just clarify this. Somebody said Joel's in the handball court. I'm not. I live in California, so I broadcast from a hidden bunker deep behind enemy lines in the People's Socialist Republic of California. And every time I go to Arizona, I have to escape past the guard towers underneath the razor wire and make sure that I can actually make it there. So anyway, I've got some more questions.
I hear you becoming an adept swimmer at going across the Colorado River.
I tell you what, yeah, I mean, one way or the other, I got to walk into Mexico, and I don't have to sneak back out. They just let me back in wherever I come back. And that's a whole different subject. We won't get into that. All right, hold on one second. Let me see if I can find some other questions for you. There were a number here. Hang on one second. People are telling me there's no more echo anymore. Thank you for that. I'm grateful. Let's see. You're waiting to see what the state is going to do with the ammo bills, because at this point, you're not required to have the permit or whatever. So they're wondering when that's going to change. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, just to let your people know, we have over 17 cases right now pending. This Duncan B. Becerra was the first one to come through the legal chute, so to speak. We have others that could come out within the next couple of weeks, but we have attacked every component of the laws enacted under Gun-Mageddon, as well as Prop 63, as well as some other illegal land closures, et cetera. We're working with the federal government on those. We've had a win recently in your neck of the woods down there in San Diego. And so stay tuned on CRPA.org, because this is an amazing time where we're pushing back. We're burning the midnight oil every day, and that's not exaggeration, but we are winning, and this is a good time.
Okay, so let me pose a question, or maybe I could be honest with you, Rick. I hate hypotheticals, but I'm going to give you the hypothetical anyway. But but I'm going to launch into one just because I can. It's my show. All right. Here's the thing I find interesting about all this. Whether the judge issues a stay or not, but particularly if he does not, this is going to be a mess for the state of California. And here's why I say that. Because even if the ban is later reinstated by the nutty ninth, which is becoming less nutty, a lot of these guys wearing the kangaroo suits have left, and they're being replaced by people who actually show up and know what they're talking about. Nevertheless, let's say the nutty ninth overturns this decision, and the current judge, Judge Benitez, does not issue a stay. That means in the intervening time, which could take a year or more for the ninth to listen to it, millions and millions and millions of mags have now been purchased by Californians, shipped to California, driven across state lines into California, which I'm assuming is also legal. In other words, you go out to Yuma and buy them at Sprague's, you can drive them back in again. These things are all legal. The nightmarish difficulty that California had in enforcing the previous ban was, well, the one thing that made it marginally possible was that you had grandfathered mags from way back when, and then you have new mags. So if you were in possession of a P-mag, there's no way you could prove that it was a grandfathered mag because it didn't exist at the time. Or if you were in possession of magazines for a gun that did not exist at the time, there's no way that the mag existed at the time, and that's how they would catch you. But now, going forward, even if they reinstitute the ban, there's no way for them to enforce it, because how do they know that you bought that during this sort of hiatus in the middle, or whether you went to Vegas and while you were there, you bought a handful of them and brought them back? Because now all modern new mags are now going to be flooding the state, and they're going to have to be grandfathered too. Am I reading this correctly?
For example, the only way the state would know who had something sent to them would be they'd have to get Midway to give them those records. Midway resides in another state, and so it'd be a very interesting court battle that would take quite a lot of time.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that the Potters, seriously, California has about the same chances of fart in a whirlwind of getting that information. I think a snowball has more chance down under, all right, than they've got. So I don't think that's likely to happen. Let me look at some more questions here and see what else I can find for you. I'm sure there are a few more. Hang on one second. Let me see what I can find. And you can sit there and just look brilliant for just a minute here. Okay, so you got those. We've already answered those. Some people want to know if there's a limit to the size of the mag that you can buy. As far as I know, no. You can buy a 100-round drum if you want. But I don't know. What do you think?
There wasn't a limit placed on this. So, I mean, I think one of the rules of thumb to be on the safe side, though, is to think of what was standardly issued. with the firearm when it was first done. I think that was one of the stronger arguments that Benitez made. And I think also to add to it, for those that haven't read the document, I know you have, Joel, but I thought it was a very interesting emotional appeal, especially when he used the single mother with the children defending herself from the home invasion robbery, because we know criminals don't follow the law. They don't carry the California accepted standard 10-round magazine when they're breaking into your home to do you harm. And I thought he painted a very good picture for the court to have to consider about the protection of life and using an emotional appeal on behalf of those in the gun community.
All right, somebody posted this question. It's actually a statement. You guys haven't been updated as of tomorrow at 5 p.m. A stay will be in effect. Buy what you can before tomorrow. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Do you?
No, I'm on your show right now, so I can't go to check.
Well, you're supposed to know all this stuff, right? Aren't you sort of electronically connected to this kind of stuff?
No, I'm not, but I can find out in just a second.
Okay, so that's fine. Yeah,
I can do that.
Send an assistant. I will take you off the screen here, and you can boss your assistant around. Hang on one second, and that way they won't see you be bossy. That's okay. Go ahead. All right. While he's doing that, I'm going to look at some other stuff here, and let me mute that in the background so you guys don't have to worry about that. Stand by 1 second. I can do this. Did you already figure that out, or do I need to mute you? I think you did it before I could mute you. You're amazing. That's you're pretty sharp cookie. How'd you do that? All right. Let me see. We've got stay. It says stay has been granted as of today, 5 p.m. So that'll be interesting information to have just in a second. Let's see. Right. Thank you very much. And I'm looking for some other questions here real quick. I'm surprised by that, to be honest with you, but then I'm not surprised by it at the same time. A bunch of people. Go ahead.
Be really careful how I say this. I, too, am very excited about how this stay, not the stay, but how we have won this case and the excitement over the second. Brownells went out and told everybody how many millions of these magazines are floating into California. And I think that really forced the Attorney General's hand and the governor to have to save face and move aggressively fast.
Okay, so how explain that? Or because they're concerned about what I was describing before? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying, when we talk about like Brunel's came out with an announcement, hey, we completely sold out of all the magazines, and guess where they went? California. And so as a result, I think that is part of what has scared the left-leaning socialist community that is trying to take all our rights away. And so they operated very quickly. But likewise, what your people need to know is once that goes into effect, then we can immediately file what we already had prepared, which is all the argumentation, which we've had posted for about 24 hours on our website, that is going to go right back at that.
Well, it'd be interesting to know whether the stay is immediate or whether it's sometimes the stays are written and they take a few days to go into effect, and that'll be Correct. Something you'll find out in a minute. One gentleman wrote here, so I just ordered 50 mags this morning from my gun shop. Does that mean I can't get them? And that's a good question. I don't know. It may be that if that stay is immediate, the gun shop cannot sell them to you now.
Correct. As of 5 p.m. tomorrow, no one can sell magazines over 10 rounds.
Is that what it is? As of 5 p.m. tomorrow. So if you're going to go now and go tomorrow before the stores close, I guess, and before everybody buys them out.
There goes your viewership because everybody just hung up to go get them.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, for crying out loud, freedom isn't free. You got to go pay for it, I guess. All right, so let me get this straight. One person writes, you can own and buy large capacity magazines, but you can't use them in anything you own. That's not entirely true, but it's close. Run them through that one more time. What can they use it in? What can't they? Just to make sure in case somebody just bopped in.
For example, like we said, if you read the ruling, which is why I'm encouraging people to do that, because that's a legal opinion. Again, I'm not the lawyer, and I have to say that. But if you read that opinion, clearly what Judge Benitez is saying is if you were having like a Glock 19 or a Glock 17 that normally ships with a 15-round magazine, that, according to his ruling, is a standard magazine.
Okay, somebody just told me if I don't show you, they cannot hear you. I did not know that. So I'm going to leave you up there. Apparently they can hear me regardless. That's a darndest audio problem. So you're not going to have to look at my ugly mug. I'm going to leave Rick up there so that you can hear him throughout. My apologies for the audio problems. We will figure them out next time. It's a low-budget show. What can I say? Joel, you're a pretty man, somebody said, but they want me to keep you full screen anyway. Well, this is a person who's obviously, thank you for that compliment, but you're obviously blind as a bat. There you are. Let's see. Only hear Rick. Yeah, it's the same thing. People telling me the same thing. All right, a featureless rifle can take 30-round plus mags. Because it's featureless, a mag lock that has a 30-plus round mag is considered an assault weapon because it still has evil features. Now, I don't know if any of that is correct. What are your thoughts?
So here's the thing. Many people are out on different types of forums and things talking about this. And, as the father of two very pro-2A police officers, I will tell you what they say all the time. They support all of our rights. They're not going to do it. But like they said, some of the men and women they work with, have had about 2 hours of gun laws in their academy. And sometimes that's 10 years ago. And they're going to look at the assault weapons thing, and anything that looks like an assault weapon, the person's going to get right or wrong, most likely at least cited at the very least, and possibly arrested. And when I look at people and say, if you can go to another state and enjoy that part of your Second Amendment rights, you just got to do the economics of this. Is it worth you losing your firearm collection if they push for the felony? Is it worth how much money this is going to take out of your job, out of your family's life, and everything else? For that, let's be honest, if you're unloading a 30-round magazine, that takes less than a minute.
Well, I think the thing, too, is that we have to, well, I shouldn't say we have to. I think it's wise to consider the fact that these laws are all very convoluted, and they're not going to be
Correct.
defeated with one court case. They're going to be defeated with many court cases over time. Each court case, it's like a brick in a wall. It takes a while to build the wall. And having been raised in the masonry trade, I can tell you how to do that. Go ahead.
And let me say something else too. This case did not happen in a vacuum. This is happening in real time. And one of the things that we've already seen towards the end of last week, when there was rumors where this case was going to come out, it came out on Friday, and then starting Monday, we had some Democrats that were not voting on anti-Second Amendment laws, some Democrats challenging their Democratic leadership by abstaining from the vote, which wasn't a vote on our side, but again, it wasn't a vote on their side. And what they were saying was, hey, look what's going on in the courts. This is the beginning of a different tide. We should consider, is this worth where we're focusing? At the same time, many of us are pushing of, hey, if you're going after the criminals, look no further than the app system, where there's almost 23,000 known felons, known locations with known illegal firearms, and you've only made 6 arrests in 2 years, DOJ. Get on top of that. And we're now starting to hear some of the Democrats in the Senate and in the Assembly saying, hey, we're going to have mud on our face because these guys on the other side are going to keep pushing that point, and that optic's not good for us. So this case isn't just about us winning, and we're going to win this. I'm fully confident that as this goes down the road, we are going to have once and for all the win.
Well, I'm grateful for that confidence. I have a feeling that given the changes in the judiciary, your confidence is well placed. It is frustrating because it takes a long time. I mean, we've been stuck with these onerous regulations and laws for 20 years in this state or more. And it takes a long time to get them to go away. It's very frustrating for folks. And I get it. I'm frustrated by it too. But at the same time, Rick, I'm encouraged because I'm seeing the courts change, and I'm seeing the opportunity for us to actually establish some serious victories here and knock some of these things out of the park.
And I want to thank your viewers sincerely for a couple things. One, they're actually engaged. If we could just get the rest of our community engaged, some of this would have never happened in the first place. But we had so many people that stuck their head in the sand and said, oh, that will never happen. People that thought places like Orange County, California was always going to be conservative. That's never going to change. And so they didn't vote. They didn't engage the system. They didn't do anything to fight. Now that we're in this position, we're having to fight. But the thing is, we're not on our heels. We're back up on our toes now, moving forward. And that's what people have to realize. Now's the time to get back to those people that have been seen on the sidelines and tell them to get off the sidelines and get engaged and get involved. We're winning. And for one thing, hold those people accountable that aren't engaged, because they have no right to grandstand when we win, because they did nothing to help in this fight.
Okay, and that brings up a subject that's going to be, I irritate somebody, and I don't care. So if you're irritated with me, you're going to have to get over it. You tell me, Rick, I'm going to ask you, who filed this lawsuit?
California Rifle Pistol Association and National Rifle Association.
Who paid for this lawsuit?
California Rifle Pistol Association and National Rifle Association.
Who's been working this lawsuit from day one?
California Rifle Pistol Association and National Rifle Association.
Folks, I'm going to put myself back up on the screen here. I know you won't be able to hear Rick, but I want to say this to you personally. I am tired of people slamming NRA and saying NRA does nothing. Here's an example right here of something NRA has been working on with CRPA for years. And they have a lot of other cases they're working on too. They didn't claim credit for somebody else's case. This case was brought by the California Rifle and Pistol Association and the National Rifle Association in the state of California, thank you very much, and paid by both. Now, I hope I've made my point. The idea here is to support these organizations. We cannot win if we are constantly taking each other to task and beating each other up. And so I want to urge you to support any firearms 2A pro-community organization that you feel is valid. And if that's NRA, then please do it. And don't succumb to the peer pressure of knuckleheads and trolls on the internet that are going to beat you up because you're joining NRA. Join NRA. Join CRPA. I'm a life member of both. Join Gun Owners of California. Join Gun Owners of America. Join the Firearms Policy Coalition. Join the Second Amendment Foundation. Alan Gottlieb's a great guy, and he does a great job over there. These folks are all working their butts off. Let's stop picking on each other and start supporting each other because we're winning this fight. It's just going to take a while. It isn't going to happen overnight. So let's stop beating each other up. All right, now that I've gotten on my soapbox, thank you. I feel so much better. Thank you for that opportunity, Rick. I couldn't have done it without you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Is there anything else about this that we need to know, about this particular case, that we need to know right now?
Just that we're working around the clock fighting it. We're taking all your questions. You can, of course, go to our website where we're updating this all the time. There'll be updates coming out tomorrow morning to tell you a little bit more about the stay that goes into effect at 5 o'clock and what we're doing on this. But please don't spread rumors. Just go see there. We're going to have the facts. We're posting them. The NRA's posting them. Some of the other groups that you mentioned are posting them so that people can go there. They can take those. They can use them as talking points. We're doing everything we can to equip you, not just within our community, but with the general public. And for one thing, please don't hide like you're in the closet and don't want to tell anybody who you are. Go out and explain to people that these are not these onerous, large capacity magazines, but like Judge Benitez said, these are normal in every other state. And talk about the disadvantage that it's ridiculous. Somebody can go across state lines to Arizona, and if they do a home invasion robbery, the person can have 14, 15 round magazines in their personal protection firearm next to their bed. Yet the single mom in California who's being assaulted by an average of 4 to 5 people coming down the hallway, the criminals are carrying whatever they want to, but she's being limited to a substandard magazine in her self-defense of her and her family.
One thing, Rick, I want to clarify, if you would clarify for us, and that is, as I read the decision and I looked through the various things that are going through the court, and forgive me, I'm not an attorney either, not even close. It looks as if the Attorney General is requesting 2 stays. First, a temporary stay, long
Correct.
enough for Judge Benitez to decide whether he wants to have a permanent stay, long enough for them to get it to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So my question is, which of the 2 stays is the one that he just agreed to?
I believe it was the temporary one, but again, I didn't ask my assistant to go check that out, but you can check. We'll have that up tonight for everybody.
Okay, because that would be important to know, because if it's the
Right.
temporary stay, then all the judge did was issue a temporary stay while the judge considers whether to indeed put a permanent stay on the decision that will last long enough for the Ninth Circuit to decide whether they want to hear the case, and if so, if they do hear the case. That could take a year or 2. So
It would actually take up to 1 year. They would have, so tomorrow's April 5th, they would have 1 year from that point to make their case.
to hear it.
Right.
Right. Then it takes the justices how many months to make a decision and actually publish one. That's my point. So you're looking at a year and a half before anything happens. So my hope is that if this is the temporary stay, then there's still a chance that Judge Benitez will not issue the permanent one. And if he doesn't, that opens the floodgates again while we're waiting for this thing to be adjudicated. The other thing I want to mention real quick, and then I think I've covered my little points I want to make, and that is that yes, we can have magazines now. The guy's right, whoever posted that. You can get the mags, but you can't use them in the guns that you want to use them in some cases because it isn't legal yet. But if you think that these Second Amendment organizations, including CRPA and NRA, are not, don't realize that, and that isn't one of the next things they're going to go after, you're living in a cave. Because I'm going to tell you right now, that's on the list of things to go after, and they will be going after it.
One of the things that you brought up that a lot of people don't understand is cases get filed, but when they get heard can be a time down. We, as I said earlier, have filed on every aspect of what came out in Gunmageddon, every aspect of Prop 63. We have cases pending in the court. And now they're finally starting to get heard, and thankfully by conservative judges.
Now, somebody did post a question here, and I'm looking through them. I did find, well, this one's easy to see because it's a super chat here, and I'll look for some others as well. But this one asks, is it the same judge or a different judge that issues the stay?
In this case, it could be the same judge. It could be a different one. Again, I can't answer that because I'm not in front of that computer, and this is starting to break right as we're doing this show. So.
Well, what I've been reading is that, just to give you maybe a possible answer to that question, what I've been reading is that either Judge Benitez could stay the law, or for that matter, one of the justices in the Ninth Circuit could stay it, because they have a more authority than Judge Benitez does, and so they can, any one of those justices, my understanding is, could issue a stay if they were requested to do so. So even if Judge Benitez refuses to do so, some judge on the Ninth Circuit could certainly do it, and that does happen. It doesn't. I don't know if it happens with great frequency, but it certainly does happen. All right, let's see. If the magazine ban is ultimately struck down, here's another question. When might the assault weapons regulation be amended or lifted regarding magazine capacity?
The two are completely under the law disconnected, even though it makes no sense to the average person, because those are two different cases that have to go through. And everybody needs to realize, because people get frustrated with us, the NRA, and the other groups you mentioned all the time, but the way these politicians put stuff together, there are multiple aspects, and we have to file multiple cases. And one of the most key things in this is finding plaintiffs, because everyone's really good at complaining and said, this isn't fair, I don't like this. But then when we have to get, I can't be, for example, the plaintiff for everything. So we have to get plaintiffs that have good standing in the state to be able to fight back. And that's probably one of the hardest things that every Second Amendment group has, is finding people who are willing to stand and be the plaintiff.
What is it that keeps people from being willing to do that typically?
Typically, we hear things like, oh my gosh, if I become a plaintiff, they're going to know who I am, where I live, and what I have.
They probably know that anyway.
Yeah.
We're in the People's Socialist Republic of California. They probably know that anyhow. But so that's the main concern, is that if you're the plaintiff, that there's going to be some repercussions from the state because they don't like what you're doing. What's the actual likelihood of that happening to someone?
Well, if you look at Peruta, he became quite a spokesperson and has had quite a secondary career. And I'm not putting that down after standing up for people's CCW rights. I happen to know the Duncans, who are part of the Duncan v. Becerra case. It's actually named after them. Rody v. Becerra, which has to do with some of the ammunition issues. Kim and I are very good friends. And Kim has not had any feedback. In fact, the companies that support her Olympic dreams for a 6th Olympic medal are backing her. So it hasn't been an impediment. And we have many other people that are on these cases. So I've never seen it personally, and I've never heard about from our lawyers who have been handling these cases for a good 40 years. So
to some degree, it's really kind of an understandable but nevertheless unfounded fear. Maybe not an irrational one, but certainly an unfounded one. And I
understand the fear, but it's kind of ironic that a lot of our people run around with the 3% things, which were after the founding fathers who lost almost everything they had to give us these rights. And then when you ask them to stand up for a case, they're like, oh, not me. And I'm like, well, then why do you have the 3% up there? If you're going to be like a founding father, you got to be able to lay it all on the line.
Well, my fanny's hanging out in the wind anyway, Rick. Yep. So if you ever need anybody to stand up and be a to be the guy. If I can possibly do it for you, I'll do it. What are they going to do? What are they going to know about me they don't already know? I'm on YouTube for crying out loud and everywhere else. Well,
you and I are kind of guilty because they already know who we are.
I'm just, you and I are just toast. Forget it. Is there anything else that we need to cover on this? I'm looking for questions. I'm not seeing any more, so I think we got them all.
No, I just, one of the things is, like I've said before, realize this doesn't come cheap. These battles are well financed on the other side. And the other thing I would ask is, a lot of these battles are starting off at a low level. We have a local new assemblyman right here near our office that's holding an anti-gun rally tonight. We're having attacks on JROTC programs where parents are coming up on misinformation, broadcasting, please stop these kids from becoming small little armies when this is the future of our country's, national defense.
Right.
So when people see those things, don't assume that, gun owners of California, the CRPA, the NRA, and everybody knows it. California is a big place with a lot of things going on. Unfortunately, a lot of them being attempted against our Second Amendment rights. Call us, send us the information so we can act and act quickly.
Hey, Rick, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on the show again. You are an incredible asset. I do have one more question, and that's just because I'm going to have you repeat it because somebody just popped in and asked a question again, but I think it's very important to ask. So let me go get it, and I'll read it for you again, and it goes back to that same thing. So if I buy the mags, I can't use them yet? Question mark. So if you can just run through that one more time for the folks that just came on, and I think we'll be done.
So what we're saying is if you have the magazines in your possession prior to the stay going into effect, and it is for a firearm, such as this example, a Glock 17 that comes with the standard 15 round magazine throughout the rest of the United States, as Benita said, that is considered acceptable. If, however, you have an AR, an AK platform or something else like that, and you're trying to marry that with a large capacity magazine beyond the 10 rounds, you're taking a very big risk with law enforcement and others, because that's going to be viewed as either like or quite definitely would be an assault weapons violation.
Okay, so just to clarify here real quick, that's whether the rifle is featureless or is compliant. In other words, it has a mag lock or something, or it is an assault weapon. In any of those rifles, it would be unwise at this point to use a magazine of more than 10 rounds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm going to make a point just kind of adjacent to this on the assault weapons and all these different ways to make them featureless, etc. Think about how many different kits, how many different variations have come out. Think about some of your previous shows that you've had, Joel, of where law enforcement has already misinterpreted what was or what wasn't acceptable. DOJ has shifted on this. And I look at people and say, it is almost impossible to know what law enforcement, when they get the first view of whatever firearm you have that looks like an assault weapon, they have not been educated, they have not been taught what is or isn't compliant.
Well, that's a great point, because I actually have guys at DOJ who are not in the firearms section who watch my videos so they know what the heck the law is. So, I mean,
Right.
you whether we like it or not, and whether we think it's right or not, I don't think it's right and I don't like it. The fact is, law enforcement agencies do not have the budgets. In other words, they don't have the money to provide the training that's required for officers to actually know what the law is when they go out the door. And part of that is because just understanding the understanding the vehicle code if you're driving around in a patrol car is an exercise in futility, because it's like the New York phone book. So now when you start having to understand these other things and they change and they're complex, I mean, you almost have to be an attorney as a cop to have a slight chance of understanding them. And even worse now is, now you have to almost take your attorney with you everywhere you go if you're going to be a firearms owner, to make sure that you're not breaking the law somehow. So as painful as it is to say, I would say Rick is right. Don't risk it. Just don't risk it. Just hold off. You'll be able to have the mags now. Yes, you'll be able to use them when you leave the state or whatever. Just hang on to them. Relief is coming. At some point or other, the cavalry will come over the hill and rescue us all so that we can have our rights back.
Correct.
Well, there you have it. Thank you very much, Rick, for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you as always for having me on. Thank you to your listeners for being engaged.
It is absolutely my pleasure. And thank you very much for watching and taking the time out of your busy day to attend this. And I also want to thank you very much for your support. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to do this stuff. And likewise, I want to thank you for your patience with the technical issues, because I'm an old dude, okay? I'm doing it all myself, so sometimes the technical stuff kind of gets away from me, and I'm not necessarily as good at it as I need to be. I will try to make sure audio and that kind of stuff works better next time. Have a wonderful week. If we find out more, as we find out more, I will let you know. Please forgive me in the sense that I know it's taken me a few days to do this, but I would rather be right than fast. The last thing I want to do is share information with you that isn't correct. So I had to make sure that the CRPA and NRA lawyers had had a chance to look at it, and that Rick was able to speak knowingly and correctly about it, so that you didn't get misinformation. Have a great week. Thanks again for watching, and please be safe.